So right after my hardware 4 video I just posted, we have all kinds of leaks and pictures and data about what is probably coming with hardware 4, and so I wanted to go over that with you because this is some really exciting stuff. So Green on Twitter, he's known for leaking all kinds of things software and hardware wise from Tesla. He tells us what's coming usually before Tesla does, and he is very accurate when it comes to all of these things. Now with that said, of course these are still all mostly rumors and nothing is official until we hear it from Tesla, but I think this is going to give us a pretty good idea of what's going on with hardware 4 and that it's coming really soon. Now you should definitely watch my last video I made if you didn't see it. It has some context and some information I think you would appreciate if you're into Tesla hardware and software updates. But it's worth mentioning, when Tesla in the past has changed their hardware for full self-driving or autopilot, it usually leads to a worse experience initially, and then it gets better over time as Tesla brings some features back. So a couple examples: when Tesla moved to Autopilot 2, it actually didn't even work. You had the new hardware, but autopilot wasn't enabled, and then it had a really slow upper speed limit. Same with when Tesla initially removed the radar. They made the top speed 75 miles per hour when it used to be 90 miles per hour. Well, now today they've raised it up to 85 miles per hour with no radar, but still to this day that's 5 miles per hour less than what you got with the old hardware that had a radar in it. So currently it seems that this new hardware is going to start coming out in the Model S and Model X, as I had mentioned in the last video. If the changes are as significant as we're going to talk about in this video, that's not going to last long, because most people are not going to want to take delivery of a hardware 3 car while these are on the roads and being delivered to customers. It looks like S and X are currently being built with this hardware, but doesn't seem they've been delivered to anybody yet, so Tesla's probably just storing these up until they reveal the information themselves. Our best guess as to when Tesla is going to be revealing all of this information is March 1st, so make sure you hit like and get subscribed, because I will be live streaming that and we can watch that together. Now Tesla doesn't always do new product reveals, but with the timing of all these leaks and everything, it seems pretty plausible that's where they will announce hardware 4. Now, in terms of Model 3 and Model Y, we have two pretty compelling pieces of information that would make us think it's also coming to those vehicles soon. Number one, of course, you got the Highland version of the Model 3 that's had the front and back covered up, which we're going to talk about some new cameras that may be covered up by those. And also Gigafactory Shanghai is about to stop Model 3 production to update the lines to this new refresh, whatever Model 3 we're about to see. So getting into the hardware 4 computer, it seems the form factor is totally different on this one. So as Elon said in the earnings call, we're not going to have retrofits for this. This is backed up by this new hardware looking different and probably not fitting in with the old system with wiring and other parts of the car. This is in contrast to the hardware 2.5 to hardware 3 upgrade, where hardware 3 was easily just slotted into the same spot. You took out the hardware 2.5 computer, you put in hardware 3, and that was it. You had an upgraded car. Doesn't look like it's going to work that way this time. The GPU is now on the same board, makes the whole package a little smaller, but the 256 gigs of storage and the 16 gigabytes of RAM are the same. Green says that the hardware 4 chip isn't a huge jump as much as he was hoping to see, but it is going up in core count from 12 cores all the way up to 20 cores. We don't know yet if it's a smaller fabrication process. The hardware 3 uses 14 nanometer, but it's incredibly likely that this is going to be a smaller, more efficient fabrication process. As I mentioned in my last video, it does seem redundancy has been improved here. The board is symmetrical with identical power connections on both sides. That makes it look like Tesla is ready for parts to fail and have backup parts ready to take over in case the car is in the middle of a drive and something fails. Now the really exciting part, there are 12 camera connectors on this board with one of those connections marked as spare. And before I get too into this, because I'm pretty excited, I will throw out the possibility that these new connections are related to Cybertruck and Semi cameras. The Semi will have additional cameras, we already know, on different parts of the car, and the Cybertruck is most likely going to have some type of under car camera in the front or something for if you're doing off-road stuff. So it's a possibility, but I don't think so. I think we're going to see these in hardware 4. I wanted to throw that out there though. Currently, hardware 3 has 8 exterior cameras and 1 interior camera. So with the current leaks of 2 front-facing windshield cameras instead of 3 in hardware 3, we have 1 rear camera, 2 on each side, and 2 front-facing cameras. That's kind of what we have left over from hardware 3 if they keep all of that the same. So if you take into account the interior camera, that leaves you with 6 more camera spots that are left open. With this, we could have 1 on each side of the bumper along with a front-facing bumper camera. This would eliminate hardware 3's current blind spot, which is a pretty good portion in front of the bumper that the sensors cannot see. The cameras currently can't see that area of the car. Maybe there are some cameras in the rear bumper as well, which would help with rear cross-traffic detection. This is me just spitballing here, but there are a lot of options. As far as what was found on the hardware 4 board, you have spots on the board that indicate front, left, and right bumper cameras. There's also left FF rear and right FF rear. which could mean front fender or front-facing cameras. It's hard to know exactly what those stand for, but you could have multiple front-facing side cameras. Maybe there are some in the bumper, and then maybe there are also some farther back that are a little higher up that are in the fender placement where hardware 3 has some cameras. Maybe now those are also front-facing or partially front-facing, or maybe facing a little bit front but also out to the sides. These fender cameras could be facing more of the front. Green was theorizing that they took the B-pillar cameras away and moved them up to that fender area. We're getting into a lot of speculation here. But if you have these two bumper cameras that are facing sideways, you'd need, besides the two in the windshield, you'd need some other ones that look also kind of sideways and kind of forward like we have in the B-pillar now. Those could have been moved to the fender area. So exciting news, there's lots of room for cameras, and a lot of people, including myself, have thought that something farther up on the car would be really helpful for cross-traffic detection, for making any type of maneuver really through an intersection. My bet is there's definitely something on either the bumper or the headlights or somewhere in that area facing the sides. My only worry is that area gets really dirty. If you look at my car always looks like this pretty much. And I know most people don't drive on dirt roads like I do, but despite that, this shows the areas of the car that can get really dirty even in a city setting. Say it rains or something and you get a bunch of stuff up on your car, it could block those cameras. Now, Tesla could have also added some type of washing ability to the cameras. Again, just totally making it up, but that doesn't really seem in Tesla's style. They don't usually add all these little moving parts if they can avoid it, although it is pretty common on other cars in this price range to have a little bump out sensor. I think BMW has it where a little washer can bump out and then spray the camera off and hide itself again. There's a new tri-band GPS module that should be more accurate. Now, personally, I don't have any problems with the GPS in my car. It's pretty much always spot on, but I know in cities where there's a lot more tall buildings and things that can obstruct the GPS, maybe this would help in those scenarios if you have noticed that, or if Tesla has gotten data that sometimes the car's losing its GPS. Now, another huge piece of slightly controversial news, it seems radar is definitely back. Now, this is not the same old radar we had before. This is an HD radar that can see about twice the distance of the old radar. So this is a Phoenix radar made by a company called ARB. And side note, they made a weird dig at Tesla in some little video. I'll try to add it here if I can find it. But it's pretty interesting that they made that. I don't know if it was supposed to be tongue-in-cheek or what was going on with that, but it seems that's the radar that's going to be added back to the car. Now, it has about 2 times the detecting distance of the old radar, going from 525 feet or 160 meters with the old radar. Now, this new radar has a range of 984 feet or 300 meters. The company says the system enables distance, height, depth, and speed simultaneously to be assessed in high resolution. This is something Tesla has been working hard on with its camera sensors. Instead of just looking at each image in a still frame and making decisions based off of those frames, which is how Autopilot used to work, Tesla has been working to make the entire video feed a stream of information the same way you or I move about throughout the world, where the car can make decisions throughout time as it sees things accelerating, decelerating, moving, turning, whatever it needs to do. It sounds like this radar will complement that very well. Included with this radar, thankfully, is a radar heater. That is something that the old radar, if you had even the slightest amount of snow on the front of your car, boom, all of Autopilot, all of your cruise control was gone completely. It was such a nightmare. I was actually very happy to get my Model Y with no radar because that was not a problem. Now, there was a short time where Tesla did add heat to the radars in the newer cars, and then they just ditched the radar altogether. But luckily, this new radar is much more capable, and it will come with a radar heater, so it will not be blocked by snow. Now, as far as the radar and the dirt and mud I was talking about earlier, that doesn't ever seem to affect radar. I'm sure if you get a thick enough thing of dirt on there, but in my experience, that was never an issue. Now, I do want to touch on this radar thing for just a second. I find it pretty interesting. Now, it can see very far, and I'm sure the data it gives is incredibly valuable. And Elon Musk did mention in the past that HD radar was relevant and maybe something that could be used in a self-driving car, whereas LiDAR, he has said from the beginning and still says is useless and shouldn't be used. In my experience, the problems I have when the car is driving itself have nothing to do with what it's looking at up front. So I'm curious if this is something that's really going to help more on the highway, traveling at much higher speeds, where we still don't have version 11, we still don't have full self-driving beta. Maybe Tesla has determined that the cameras just don't have enough information coming in. They can't see far enough for those higher speeds where you're going to be going 70, 80, 85 miles per hour. And radar is really going to help there. That could be part of these delays. That doesn't mean version 11 is not coming to hardware 3 cars. It's just something I thought about because when I'm using beta, things in front of the car are not the problem. The 2 main problems for me are its logic, really. It's decision making, which doesn't seem to be related to sensors, and high-speed cross traffic, where the car it doesn't seem to be able to see far enough distance to the sides. And if there's any occlusions like a building or bushes or trees, then it can't see anything and it has to creep too much because there's no cameras far up front. So I'm surprised and not at the radar edition. Whatever makes it work, I don't really care. But yeah, it's just something I thought I would mention. Now, one unfortunate piece of news, it seems this new board will use almost double the energy while idle of the old board. While this may not end up making a huge difference to the end user, it could result in slightly less range, of course, and it will use higher energy while you're parked. Now, when the car goes to sleep, it shouldn't affect anything, but we know with Sentry mode, the car doesn't really sleep, so maybe this thing's gonna be burning up even more energy if you're in Sentry mode. Just speculation, but it's something to consider. So overall, very exciting news from Tesla. I am so excited for a new camera setup. I think it's needed. I feel really bad for Hardware 3 cars, including myself, because while they still do kind of technically drive themselves, I think they're going to be left behind a little bit in capabilities, especially when we look more like a year out. I don't think when these cars are first released, you're going to see a huge difference in the way that they're driving. But I think when you look 6 months to a year or more out, Hardware 4 is going to be far more capable and confident than you're seeing with Hardware 3 today. If you have any questions, leave those down below. I'd love to answer those, and you will see me in the next video.